Alright then. Well, I'm getting ready for a show this weekend, and I was just out here working on a few more bowls and things like that. And I had a pretty good sized box elder blank. It's about a 11.5 inch bowl blank, and it's really soft, and it's got tons of bug holes in it. And I was sitting there turning it and getting it started, and that's when I started running into all the bug holes. And I'll show them to you a little bit closer here in a minute, and I'll show you what I'm going to do to try to make this into a bowl that might be pretty. It's really got a lot of the red in it, and I really want to save this bowl. So we're going to get started on this. I've already got the outside rough shaped, and I'll show you what I'm doing with the bug holes and things like that. All right, let's get with it. This is it, and you can see there's a lot of bug holes. I was working on this bowl. I wasn't actually going to do a video on it, but once I started running into all of this, I knew there were a few bug holes, but I didn't know there was anything like this. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do about this, and hopefully I'll have a presentable bowl at the end of the video. I hope. Okay, first thing, I'm not going to fill these holes. Now normally holes like this I would fill with coffee grinds or sawdust right off the lathe, or maybe even I've got jars up here which are different types of end grain shavings from when I bore into things like making mugs or something like that. I save the end grain shavings, and those things will grind down really fine into really fine sawdust, and it fills these things really well. But in all actuality, I don't think I've got enough of any type. I've got all different types, like walnut, maple, cherry. I've got all different kinds, but I don't have enough of any one kind to actually do this bowl. So what I'm doing is I'm going to start out with sanding sealer. This is my Deft. It's lacquer based sanding sealer. I use it on just about every project I do in here. But as you can see, I'm almost empty, and my hardware store doesn't sell it anymore. So I'm going to have to find a different sanding sealer, or find another supplier. But I usually try to buy from my local hardware store and show them a little support. Alright, I'm just going to use a 2-inch chip brush to try to get this thing started. I'm just going to put on a big heavy coat because this thing is like really soft. And let's see, there's some in there I need to get out. Let me grab a little. And all I did was I blew this out with my air compressor. Let me move that back out of the way. I blew all this out with my air compressor, and some of it, didn't come out, and I just found some right as I got started. So I'll just use a little bitty screwdriver, any kind of pick or anything like that will be fine to do this with. Well, some of those holes are big and deep. But what I'm going to the look I'm going to try to go for with this is something I hadn't really done before. It's kind of a natural piercing. I think it'll look really cool if I can make it work. But I'm gonna cover this whole thing with a thick coat of this stuff and just let it soak in and try to stiffen up these fibers, or else I'm just going to end up with just tons and tons and tons of tear out. I'm even going to get down in the bug holes themselves. And make sure I get it everywhere. But mainly this, what I'm doing here is for these end grain sections. And if you use a really sharp tool, you should be able to cut most all of this off without a lot of difficulty. But if your tools are getting a little bit dull, you won't be able to do this without the tear out. Alright, well, I've got it all coated now, and I'm just going to have to wait for this to cure up. And as it cures up, it'll raise all these fibers and kind of stiffen them up. I'm going to make sure I've got my tools really sharp, so maybe I can cut these off without having a lot of tear out here. And well, that stuff really penetrated deep. I used about half of the depth that I had, but I put it in all the bug holes, so all the bug holes are full. And now it's just going to be letting it cure up, and I'm going to let it cure up for a couple of hours, and then I'll be back to try to finish turn this outside and get it turned around, and I'll end up doing the same thing on the inside. I've got a freshly sharpened tool, and I'm just going to try to cut this stuff off. I'm just going to use a shearing cut here. A very, very light cut. And I am just rubbing the bevel. Oh yeah, it's cutting really nice. It's getting that tear out too. I'll have to go deeper, but it is getting it. Let me see if I can get you around here so you can see this cut. Well, I'm trying to do this left-handed and staying out of the camera's frame, but anyway, I'm down here about 45 degrees, and I'm just barely rubbing the bevel and just barely cutting. And this is a cut. It's not a scrape. A scrape is going to make the tear out way worse. But a cut, you might can cut it off. Very, very, very light cut. Let's see what we got. Yeah, it's getting the tear out. I've got to go deeper, but it's getting it. And I'm learning how to cut left-handed. I start out with the bevel against the bowl, and then I just turn it until I start pulling and shaving. Right there. And then I just try to follow this profile. Very easy. Do not get aggressive. If you get aggressive, you're going to get in trouble with that tear out. Tear out is almost gone. If I don't create more. Alright, let's see what we got. Ha ha ha. Just a very, very little bit left. No tear out in this end grain here. Still got a little bit more to go, but it's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good. Matter of fact, I could actually sand that out, but it's best to go ahead and practice. You know, practice these cuts. They can really make sanding a whole lot better for you. Okay, well that actually cut really well. Got very little tear out in here at all. But now I'm going to go ahead and try to blow all of this bug stuff out and expose all those holes. And make sure you're wearing protection. And the air will get a majority of all of it, but you'll still have some left that you'll have to pick. Like in that area right there, it's not all coming out. Some of that stuff comes out hard. You can feel it hitting your face shield. This is not a job for safety glasses. Unless you want to wear some under your face shield. still see a lot of places that need to be broken out of there. Just kind of picking it out. But I will use sanding sealer on this, a really heavy coat, but I'm probably not gonna go back and scrape it unless I see some really bad areas. Right. Okay, I think that's good. That's ready to sand. The inside there. Let me blow that out. Alright. Okay. Now we're just going to get ready to sand this up and see what we get. I'm just starting my sanding at 80 grit. I'm just power sanding that down. See how it, oh boy. Yeah, it's looking really good. But I'm just going to power sand at 80 grit over the whole thing. And there's just a little bit of tear out there. And make sure I get all that out. But this bowl's looking pretty good. So that's got 80 grit sanding done. Now I'm moving on to 120. And after 120, I'm going to go ahead and put another coat of sanding sealer on it, a light coat, and then I'll sand it on up to about 400. Alright, so let's get that going. So this is 120. Gotta watch all those little holes. It's hard not to catch them. Alright, now I'm just going to start putting on another coat of sanding sealer, and I'm just going to use a paper towel to do it with. And I'm only trying to hit the surfaces. I don't actually want it in the bug holes this time. It's going to take a while. I'm just going to rub this stuff in and get ready for my final sanding. It's been sanded Right now it's been sanded up to 120. And all this is going to do is just help me with my sanding. Alright, well, I've got this thing sanded down to 400 grit. It's looking really good. All smooth, no tear out. It looks really good. Now I'm just getting ready to take it off the take the recess off the bottom and get this thing finished up. So let me get the lathe set up and get this recess fixed. My 1/2 inch ball gouge. Just make sure this rim's screwed up. Make sure I got a fresh cut all, and I don't. I almost got a fresh cut all the way around. I think that should be fine. This is just a friction drive, so you don't want to get aggressive, too aggressive. This is softwood and it cuts really easy. You've got to be very careful. Alright, now it's time for finish. And I've done a lot of deliberating on what type of finish to use. I used a lacquer-based sanding sealer. And but actually there's almost none of that left. There's them acorns again. And I thought, well, I can't rub it on with like wax and things like that, because all these holes and all they catch your pad and just tear it all to pieces, and you end up with pieces of your pad inside these holes. And I found that out when I was putting on the sanding sealer the last time. So I was looking for something that I could brush on, and I decided to go with polyacrylic. It's a water-based polyurethane. A couple of advantages to this. First of all, it doesn't change the color of the piece, and second of all, it cures really fast. So that's what I'm using, and I'm going to use just a regular paintbrush to put it on, and it shouldn't actually soak up too much because it's full of sanding sealer. So we'll just see how this goes. It brings the colors out pretty good. That red, look at that. It brings out that red. Still have to be really careful in these holes, because I'm going to end up with finish in those holes. I have to come back and wipe out with a paper towel. But I think this is going to look really good. It's just a water-based polyurethane. But you can't let it be thick. Like in these places here, it can't be thick. If it's thick, then it'll look milky. So each one of these coats is going to take a little while, because I have to make sure that I get all of that stuff out of those little holes. But man, it brings that red out good. I can't wait to see what it looks like after about 2 or 3 coats. Okay, well, that's a coat on the inside and a coat on the outside. Now I'm going to let that cure up good. Probably about 30 minutes. It's kind of humid out here. But I'll know when I start sanding. As long as it's not sticky, I'll be good to go. But I'll sand everything 400 grit, and then I'll put another coat of finish on it, and then I'll do the same thing and do the same thing, and we'll see what it turns out like. Well, looks like that's the end of another project. My naturally pierced box elder, flaming box elder bolt. That red really looks good in there. I've finished this thing with polyurethane, or actually it's polyacrylic. Actually, it's the water-based version. But I'd give it a good hard finish. And it's, you know, it's a decorative bowl, so I don't think anybody's going to put any liquid in there. I mean, you can see right through it in a lot of places. But man, this thing was really fun. It took about a day to get turned and prepped and all that, and then today I've been working on the finish. But I really enjoyed this project. It was a lot of fun. Big challenges too. It was very hard to power sand, and it was also very hard to hand sand. Everything kept catching in these little holes. So, you know, and that's also the reason I didn't use my normal finish on bowls is sand and sealer, and sand down to 400 grit, and then wax it. But waxing it was just almost out of the question because of all the holes. The wax would have been trying to get in the holes. It would have been tearing my pads. So that's why I decided to go with the polyurethane. And I brushed it on. I think it looks pretty good. It was a lot of fun doing this project. So, but I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see y'all down the road. Oh, hey, got a show in Cartersville, the Roselawn Festival. If any of y'all want to swing by, swing by. See y'all down the road.